G'day guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I have a power ranking video for you, the first one of the year. I've decided to do this after round 10, so yeah, let's get straight into it. So yeah, just the power rankings as usual. Obviously got 1 to 4 up at the top there, 5 to 8, 9 to 11, 12 to 15, 16 to 18. It's just my power rankings of how I feel like the season or recent form for the team from like the past month really. So yeah, let's start it off. Obviously we're going to go with West Coast in 18th. Now obviously I'm going to put them there after their horrible clash against Hawthorn. And yeah, besides that, they've been pretty ordinary this month. Also suffering pretty big losses to Gold Coast, which was at home, so that made that game a little bit more interesting for them. And yeah, they just have had a pretty ordinary month. They also got smashed by Carlton pretty recently as well, so yeah, that's why they're there for the moment. In 17th, I have North Melbourne. They haven't won in such a long time now. They've suffered 8 losses in a row. They obviously started the season off really well. Obviously now Clarko's taken leave. We saw Brett Rutten step up as interim coach, and yeah, well, had an absolute hell of a start with that massive infringement with the bench. And yeah, they're mainly in this position because they have not won since round 2. But they have been a little bit more competitive than West Coast. In 16th spot, I'm actually going to go with Hawthorn. Now, I could argue I could put someone else here because they've actually been fairly competitive, especially recently. But yeah, look, they've only won the 3 games this season. It hasn't been a good season for them. In fact, it might actually be 2 games. Yeah, that's right. It's 2 games. So yeah, you just can't deny it. These 3 teams are definitely the worst in the competition this year. Now, in 15th spot, I'm going to put Sydney. They have been horrible of late. They have not won in quite a while. I mean, obviously, they did win against North Melbourne, but apart from that, they've been really ordinary, and they've got a pretty big month of football ahead if they want to somehow find a way to push their way back up the ladder. But I think finals is definitely out of the question now for Sydney. Now, in 14th, this one could be a little bit more controversial because I feel like they've been all right, and that's Gold Coast. Obviously they can play well at Heritage, and they always do. But yeah, they've just had a very ordinary season so far, and yeah, look, Stewie G's position is definitely unclear for the future beyond this season, and yeah, he could lose his job very soon, that's for sure. Now, in 13th spot, I'm going to put in Richmond. Apart from their win against Geelong, they've been just as bad as Sydney, or even worse, really. We all know what's happened this week with Dimmer, obviously deciding to quit, thinking his time was up, and now the interim coach, Andrew Mackay, is going to have to step up and deliver something pretty good against a pretty hot Yarraponte this week. And now in 12, this is going to be extremely controversial, but we're going off recent form, and I'm going to go with Carlton. They have been absolutely horrible of late. The only reason why they're above the 3 teams that I put below them is because they've actually been able to bang in more consistent games and more wins than the teams below them. But yeah, their recent month has been arguably worse than some of the teams I put below them. And yeah, look, finals is probably beyond them now. They've got a lot of work to do if they want to make the finals. Now, this is very controversial, but in 11th, I'm going to put GWS. They've been really competitive this year. Obviously, they haven't got much wins this season, but they've actually been very competitive, apart from that Collingwood game. And yeah, their football, especially at home, is definitely better than most of these sides I put below them. And on a good day, I feel like they could beat the teams below them as well. Now, in 10th spot, again, I feel a little bit harsh doing this, seeming they're in pretty good form, but I can't really put them anywhere else, and that's Walyup or Fremantle. They've had a really good last 3 weeks, but apart from that, they've had a pretty ordinary season, though their season is definitely back on track now, as they're 5-5, and they're definitely pushing back up the ladder. And they've had a few great players step up to this season, especially of late. So yeah, that's what they'd want. That's for sure. Now coming in at ninth, this is very, very In fact, it's too controversial. I'm going to put Essendon. I know Essendon fans would want me to put them in the 8, but they have had a pretty ordinary month, apart from the win against Richmond. Obviously, they were playing teams that were all above them and all nearly top 4 teams. And yeah, they just weren't very, very convincing in some of the games. But lucky for them, they're able to get their season back on track now, as they are 5-5. Now, I'm going to put Geelong in 8th. Yeah, their form at the moment has been great due to injury. They can't find the right depth at the moment to replace them at the minute. Now, 7th spot, I'm doing this off recent form. I know they've been better this season, but that's St Kilda. They are starting to drop off a little bit, but they are still banking in the wins that they need against the teams that are below them. It's just the teams that are above them they just really, really need to work on. Now in 6th spot, I put Adelaide. Obviously, they don't have as much wins as St Kilda, but they've been much more competitive in some of the teams, in some of the games against the top teams. Obviously, their most recent performance against the Bulldogs was arguably the worst of the season, that's for sure. But every other game, I feel like they were definitely in it and possibly could have won it, but maybe not the Geelong game. But apart from the Geelong versus Western Bulldogs game, yeah, I feel like they've been pretty solid. Now at 5th, I'm going to go the Bulldogs. I'm doing this off recent form, and their recent form has been absolutely fantastic. That's why they're there. That's why they're doing fantastic. It's just I can't put them any higher because the teams that are above them have more wins than them. And that's pretty unfortunate for the Dogs because at the moment, especially of late, they're playing top 4 footy, and they're definitely a chance if they can keep winning. Now in 4th spot, I'm putting Narm. They need to find a way to be more competitive away from the MCG. They've obviously lost to Essendon, Brisbane, and Yarraponte now away from home. But yeah, at the MCG, they're absolute fortress, and they definitely deserve that top 4 spot. Now coming in 3rd, a bit controversial. In fact, it's probably a little bit too controversial, seeing their recent form. Of late, they've won their last 7 in a row, like Port Adelaide or Yarraponte. So I'm going to put Port Adelaide in 3rd and Brisbane in 2nd. Both teams have been arguably as amazing this season. They've made each team's home ground an absolute fortress to play at. They're in amazing form, and yeah, they're just doing fantastic at the moment. And Collingwood, they're obviously first this season. It's absolutely fantastic to say. Still on top, 9-1. You just got to put them there. The only loss coming against Brisbane, which was a pretty unlucky game for them, I want to say. But yeah, that's it. I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like most people will agree with me, except for maybe the Carlton and GWS move, but that's just my opinion. I feel like I've got the top 4 pretty much right, and maybe even the top 8 order. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more videos coming out soon on the channel.